I have been estranged from my mom and from my son at different times in my life. And I'm here to share my experience with you and what I learned during those periods of estrangement in hopes that you can use this in your own life and repair the relationships that are damaged. So stick around. So when I was growing up, my mom wanted me to be a little lady, but my dad wanted a boy and was stuck with a little red-haired girl. So naturally, I became a daddy's girl. I'm 47 years old, and I am here to report that I am still a daddy's girl. And that's okay. But there was a lot of static in the relationship with my mom. Like my friends, they would talk about all the fun things they did with their moms, and I didn't have those stories. My fun things were with my dad working on cars. So our relationship was always a little strained, even from the time I was a child. I excelled in high school. My grades were good. I was in sports. I was in drama. I did DECA. If you know what DECA is, I went to national competition for that. And I went to state competition for drama, of comedy actually, for humorous interpretation. But at the same time, I had a lot going on the inside. Like I was doing all these things and wanted to make my mom proud. I wanted to be the best. I had to be the best. Anything less was unacceptable. But the weight of these expectations took their toll. And I became very, very depressed as a teenager, and not really suicidal at that point, but I was getting into drugs and alcohol, and found out it felt real good when I wasn't thinking about all the sad shit I had to deal with in my other part of my life. I turned into a party girl. By the time I graduated high school, I was a full-blown addict. So I went to college. When I was 18, after I graduated, I partied the whole summer. I went to college. It did not stop. The party just continued. And I was an alcoholic addict, whatever term you want to label to that. I was addicted to alcohol. And anything else I could get my hands on was just more fun for me. And I mean, it got to the point where I didn't even know where my classes were. I remember walking into one class thinking might have been like a math class or something. I don't even remember, but it was the wrong class, wrong teacher. I don't even know if it was the right room at the wrong time of day. I was that fucked up, and so I didn't stay there but one semester. And when I came back and I realized what I had done, like it crushed some part of this big part of me into nothing, because I had let my mother down. She was so excited because I was joining a sorority and I was doing all these things, going to school where she wanted me to go to school, and it was the first time I had really just thrown it all out the window. And I was so upset with myself. I was so mad at myself, and diving deeper and deeper into alcohol, there was not a day that went by I was some kind of buzzed. She left my dad on New Year's Eve. I had been out partying and I had come home. I remember this so fucking clearly. I was sitting in my bed and doing the 1 foot on the floor thing, propped up in the corner, trying to make the room quit spinning, one of those. And she comes in and she sits down on my bed. I'm like, what the fuck? And she starts telling me that she's leaving my dad. And I'm not even concerned. Yeah, I was thinking it was ruining my buzz. I'd rather have the room spinning than to listen to this. That's what was going through my head, and I think it's punishment that I remember that, and I can't remember what I ate yesterday. That was the first big rift that formed between us. I took my dad's side because I was a daddy's girl, and we weren't exactly estranged at that point, but there was a rift. You know, we were both in a place. She needed space, and I didn't realize that she needed space. I thought she was being selfish. And because I needed my mom. But every time she would reach out to me, I'd slap her hand back because I was angry and I was disappointed in myself. So later, when everything got worse and I was homeless and estranged from both of my parents and living in my car, I started thinking, that maybe this wasn't the life for me. I showed up at my dad's door one night, knocked on the door, and he was so glad to see me. Like he was trying to give me food. He sent me out with a backpack full of food, and a kitten named Cadillac, a little calico kitten named Cadillac. But I took that kitten with me, and that began the repair with my dad. Like I was just not prepared to live the life I was living at 18 years old. I was completely unaware of how harsh life can be. And after sleeping in the car for a while, it sort of, cleared my head. So that was the first period of any kind of estrangement. There have been others. I haven't been as, the relationship with my dad has not been as volatile, but with my mom, that was always this recurring theme. I wasn't doing, and this is what I saw while I was in it, while everything was happening. I'm not doing what she wants me to do, so she doesn't love me. I don't matter. It wasn't until I was going through this with my own son that it opened my eyes, because I was in a period of estrangement from her at that point. We were not speaking. We were actually, my daughter had a softball game and we were both there, and we were 3 feet away from each other, and she wouldn't even turn around and look at me. So I had my son. She raised him since he was 7. I was not in a good place. I was an addict. I was in active addiction. I was not a good parent. I couldn't even take care of myself, and I ended up homeless again. I had no business with him, so I'm grateful that she took him. But there was some static, as you can possibly imagine. I had a lot of feelings about that for many, many years. And when he was 15, she brought him back home. And then I was a mom again, and to a 15-year-old. He'd gone from 7 to 15. And I mean, I'd seen him, I'd spent time with him and all that, but there's a big difference between 7 and 15. He was on a dangerous path. He was on the same path I was, and it scared me to death. And I was back in active addiction, in and out of it. I had to send him to his dad's. I thought that was the best thing, but I didn't realize until it was too late that the only thing he ever wanted was me, his mom, to live and have a relationship with his mom. And he was very angry that he didn't have that, because he didn't have a dad either. Not until it was shortly before he moved back in with me that he met his dad for the first time since he was 4 months old. So after a couple of years in Mississippi, Jake, my son, comes back to Tennessee, and he's 18. He's just like me, full-blown addict. I was living in Alabama at that point and completely estranged from my mother. We texted each other maybe once every 6 months to say Merry Christmas or Happy Birthday, and that was it. Now my son is 500 miles away and really having a very hard time. So I came back for other reasons too, because I was having my own hard time. Like, I was not doing good. And I came back, and the first time I noticed his behavior was on that return trip. Him and my dad came down there with a U-Haul van, and we loaded me up, and Jake was not himself. He did not look himself. And I mean, I was a meth addict. Meth was my thing for many years, and I can see I know the difference between a meth addict, a crack addict, and a pill addict. Okay, look, we all look different. We have a certain look because of the way it affects us on a physical level. Just like that, I saw it, and I was heartbroken, because everything I had been hearing was true. We got around where we need to turn, right outside of Mobile, and I missed the exit. And this was also when my eyes were starting to go bad, so I wasn't even able to really clearly see the sign until it was really close to it. Pulled over, we're trying to check the GPS, and the tension is building. My dad's behind us in the van, and Jake starts screaming at me, jumps out of the car, and we're talking about a busy section of road. We were on I-10, if you know, you know. And he jumps out of the car in the middle of the road. I couldn't believe it. It was the most terrifying moment of my life. I was just scared to death he was fixing to get hit, and he's screaming at me at the same time, and I don't know what happened. And in the space of a few minutes, he went from laid back, chill, and slightly aggravated to I thought he was going to kill me or himself. I got clean when he went to rehab because I could see so clearly that he was following in my path. And I needed to lay down new steps. So that I took 12 of them. When he was out of rehab, we got an apartment together because I was also finally on my feet and able to move out of my dad's and get my own place. And so I thought, I want to do this. We're going to do this together. We're going to make this work. It did for a while.
That was Best Buy. We got caught, but the dude was pretty cool, so.
We did it. We did it. We didn't get caught live streaming.
We kind of did get caught, honestly.
We did get caught, but we got him to pitch the whole thing.
The whole thing, guys.
But then he started getting high again, and I was so blind to it, I couldn't see it right away until it escalated to a point I couldn't ignore it anymore. There was a pattern, and extreme mood changes were a part of that pattern, and my safety became an issue. I was starting to become, I've been in abusive relationships before, and my son is acting like one of these guys. When he put hands on me, I called the police and had him escorted out of the apartment, and I told him as they took him away, I cannot watch you destroy your life. And so began our first period of estrangement that lasted several months until he called me and said, Mom, I need help. The next morning, we were on our way to a treatment program.
I ain't got really much to say, but, I heard something a while back. It's a mandatory minimum that we go as hard as we possibly can to get this addiction. There was a time when I almost left because I was out of the job, but that reason for me being out of the job, it was my fault. I just had to sleep. The trick to this program is just go to work every day, just show up, show out, grind hard, come home. That's it.
He did great for about 9 months, and then he couldn't deal with himself anymore. There were some things that happened, and he couldn't handle it. Like, he couldn't live without chemicals to change the way he felt. He had gotten into some trouble. We had never bonded him out of jail. He'd been in and out quite a bit, but we never bonded him out. So this time we were going to bond him out, and I was making like $10 an hour then. So I really wasn't making a lot of money. And I just took out a payday loan to help cover his bond and his lawyer. And he said, Mom, I'll pay you back. And he had a good job. So I called him and I was like, hey, and then this was like a month later. I was like, hey, do you got any of that? Money's really short right now, and it would be great if you could just pay me back that $50. And that's all I asked for was $50. And he cussed me out. And that became our last period of estrangement. That was on September 27th of 2019. I kept tabs on him through Facebook, through friends. My dad, people would come and tell me what he was up to. So I knew he was not okay. On November 24th of 2019, my dad calls me over. He's got they've done some trying to hook up a security camera, and there had been some things because Jay was in active addiction, and he was doing things that become threatening to personal safety, and some of these things had happened. So they were putting up security cameras and needed help, and I was the techie in the family, I guess. So they called me, and I went over, and I was talking to my dad, and Jake comes home, and those were the first civil words we had spoken in between the end of September, so 3 months, 2 months, whatever that is. I didn't want to push. I could see that something was bothering him, but I didn't want to push because pushing gets pushed back. So I was just gonna let him set the pace. I should have pushed because 2 days later, he took his life. In the wake of his death, I wanted my mom so bad, but we weren't speaking. We started speaking, but it was so tense. And it took so many tries after that because there was such a huge block between us. It was like we were on different sides of a river. I was banned from her driveway after spraying her house and 2 cars and a boat with gravel because I was mad. We had been in fist fights because neither one of us knew how to be disagreeable without physical violence, because that's what we knew. And there was a lot of things, a lot of words. You hurt me with what you said, so I'm gonna say something that's gonna hurt you more. We had to stop that. And there was a lot of things that if I had to choose, I couldn't get over these things, but I had to make a choice. I could keep it and let it fester, or I could just let it go, cut it out and let it go, clean my house, take out that trash, it stinks. I'm her source when she needs to vent now. All summer long, she's been off work and she's had surgery on her shoulder, so she hasn't been able to really do a lot. We've had lunch together once a week, every week this summer, and it's been great. Now, it still freaks her out if I tell her I love her, so I don't. I mean, my dad, he gets real emotional. My mom just kind of freaks out and don't know what to do. It's like a deer in the headlights. So I leave her, I let her be where she is, and I just show her. And I show her, not just by going to have lunch with her, or I fixed something here, do you want this? I show her by living in a way of peace, because some of the things that we disagreed on are fundamental to who we are. We had to choose to let that shit go. There were fairly recent events that were unfortunate and unpleasant for everyone. We had to choose to let that go too. And now we're good, and I'm so grateful. But I could not have done this by myself. She did her part. I don't know what her part was. It's not my business. She did her things. I did my things. I don't know if I want to call this a regret or not, but what I hope you take away from this, I didn't have this chance with my son because I was afraid to push. I do deal with guilt from his death. I've made a whole video about it. I deal with it in the best way I can, and some days it sticks to me a little more than others. And there are the days when I really wish I had pushed, when I could feel it coming off of him that he was hurting. I was afraid. You cannot be afraid of what the feelings you're going to have or what the repercussions are going to be when you're estranged from your parent or your child, and you are at least ready to end this estrangement because it doesn't make sense anymore. You have to be unafraid to look at yourself, to take those steps, to learn how to reach without pushing. We don't know our expiration date ahead of time. I was not able to fully repair things with my son. Some days that hurts more than others. This is something I have to let go of every single day. So I encourage you, if you're thinking about repairing a relationship that has been damaged, it can be done. Please take this as hope. It will help you in some way. If this resonates with you and you enjoyed this content, leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and come back here for more. I share my experiences with you when you share your time with me.